Hey, it is 4:01. Welcome back, everyone, to the open meeting. We had no reportable action that was taken during closed session. We move on to item number 5.01, receiving the development status report. Karen, I think you're on.
Okay. So Valentine Road is moving along. You really got the earlier report from Jeff on that. We are working, we're expecting to purchase the building in March at this point. Even though we keep hearing that we have the best application, we were the first one approved. Even last week, they were still asking us additional questions, which we've answered. And I guess the summary is that we expect to be able to close in March.
They started working on the standard agreement. Is that why you're getting questions?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we don't have a standard agreement yet, which is one of the key steps in order to get funded. And we're working through design issues that have to do with ADA compliance and figuring out how to get ourselves positioned to get our switch gear as soon as possible and things like that. But basically we're moving ahead and things are going well, although they're complicated. Westview Village 4 is a bit on hold as we try to figure out how we can make it work financially as a ownership project, if we can do that. We did apply for some funding from the county, which from the county, which could help. Santa Clara Apartments, we are moving forward with getting discretionary approvals that we need, and with submitting our RAD application. And trying to figure out how we can get sort of advanced clarification from FHEO on issues related to setting aside units. Our Westview, the West Side street improvements are still in plan check, but pretty soon we're going to be able to start those. So our project in construction, Westview Village 2, we are expecting to be completed by March and be able to move in then. We're moving ahead with lease up, still in some discussions with FHEO and TCAC, but moving ahead with our lease up process. And we're for the childcare center, we've the group that we were planning to work with basically backed out, but we met with Head Start and they are going to move forward to lease the childcare space. And so that I think will be a very good partnership. And they even should be able to pay rent. So Westview Village 3, the big news is that we did finally close our permanent financing the day after Christmas. That's a major milestone. And we were able through that closing to actually pay off improvements that we did on the office as kind of an adjacent use to Westview 3. So that was a positive thing. We are working on submitting our placed in service application this month, which is within the 1-year deadline for doing that. So that's all a good thing. Our urban greening project is completed. Probably needs to come off this list. And El Portal, we are waiting for 8609s. I expect. Anyway, that's still pending. Willow Ranch, we actually just received our final equity from the investors. So that's pretty good. And we can take Willow Ranch off the list.
Okay, that's very good.
Yeah. Any questions or comments?
Questions on the development report?
I'm interested in seeing how Westview 4 comes along with the ownership program and how you make it work.
Okay, well, we'll keep.
We are too.
It's challenging. It's for a lot of reasons.
We did have a meeting with the Ventura County Community Development Corporation this week. They provide a lot of first-time home buyer down payment assistance and, and try to engage them in this process. We've talked about maybe identifying with Stephanie's team, any of our FSS clients that might be in a position where in a few years they might be able to get there and start giving them sort of extra attention between now and then. So if we ultimately can build it as a for sale, we have somebody kind of working towards the ability to be eligible. So trying to figure that out, but the funding sources and drawing down the cost so that we can actually do it in a way that we can sell it and affordable is the key.
And if interest rates start to go down, that would be a good thing.
They have a little bit.
Well, anyway.
Yeah.
Well, I was thinking about when I first wanted to buy a house here in Ventura County, interest rates were at 22%. So it's pretty good.
Housing prices were much lower.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, if there are no further questions, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to accept the development status report.
A second.
We have Selfa as the maker of the motion. I heard Kate first, Barbara.
Oh,
Yeah, she beat you to the punch.
okay. It was
She
really
is the
low. though.
second. So we do have a first and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Oh, sorry. Maybe I should wake up first. Commissioner Sparagna,
Yes.
Commissioner Simonson,
Yes.
Commissioner Silkin's absent, Commissioner Sosito,
Yes.
Commissioner Keller,
Yes.
Vice Chair White absent, and Chair Polensky.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you very
Thanks
much.
for waking me up.
5.02, discuss and receive entity alignment
Great. I'd like to ask
for
you,
Housing Authority of the City of San Buenaventura and its affiliated organizations.
I'd like Karen Goutzler to join as well as Karen Flock and Stephanie could join the table. So this is the beginning of a conversation that we started in 2019. I have a presentation, it's attached to your packet. I'll go through it if you think that's helpful, but I'm going to start by not going through it unless you think that's helpful for background. But I think we've all had these conversations, and I know in 2019 and 2020, we had some deep discussions. We actually had several staff teams do deep dive on these entities that are all part of the Housing Authority family, but not
Right.
the Housing Authority. And I mean that, I mean Triad,
Yeah.
Homecomings, and Cocina. I think it's clear to say, from my vantage point, being here just over 4 months, that Homecomings is in pretty good shape. Continue to meet. In fact, this is the first time we've had a Housing Authority board meeting without a homecoming meeting.
That's right.
And so, but there's obviously some room for improvement on the bylaws and to align them with, in a more tight way. Triad is an owner of property that is associated with the Housing Authority. They haven't met in many years.
Several years.
I think it's been at least 4 or 5 years since they've actually met. So we need to bring some attention to that and what's the future of Triad and have those strategic conversations. And then Cocina was formed for one purpose, never had bylaws, and the Cocina board, which is the board of the Housing Authority, has never met.
Right.
And so there are different levels of needing some attention. And so the purpose of this conversation with all of you is to begin to talk about how we're going to do that. And we formed a staff committee to kind of really evaluate where we are. We've spent a little bit more time on Cocina because it might need the most attention because it really has been established. And we intend to bring that to the board, to you in February, and a more deeper dive, get your guidance, and then actually schedule a Cocina board meeting. So the Cocina board can adopt bylaws, pick a chair and vice chair, and then we'll get into a pattern with Cocina. But really, this is an opportunity just to let you know that we're looking at these entities, how they are individually and how they're aligned with each other, because they're all part of what we do. But some of them have got less attention than others. And I would say Triad and Cocina are the ones that really need some attention. And so that's really the purpose of this. I'm happy to go through the presentation if you think that's necessary. I don't know that it is, because I think you're all pretty familiar, but if a refresher would be helpful, just say the word and I'll flip through the slides.
Well, and the good thing is by attaching to the packet, I noticed
Yeah.
that it was there, and
Yeah.
everybody has an opportunity to kind of go back
Yeah.
if they, have questions after. So I think Yeah, in the interest of everyone's time, I just
So that this,
roll into it.
and the reason I ask these folks here is because these are all the folks that are part of, these organizations. And I know Karen Flock has a lot of history of Triad, where it started, where it came from. But I think this is an opportunity for us to really think about what these entities mean to the overall housing authority sort of mission. And how they should be aligned and more organized as an entity associated with the housing authority. And I will tell you right now, the one we spent the most time on is Casino. And this is maybe coming from a community foundation perspective. From my perspective, is I think Casino is underutilized. It could be a much bigger asset for our organization. It really could be maybe this is too strong a word, a powerhouse of actually doing fundraising to support our programs. Community Services does a ton of work with a small but mighty team. There's a lot more we could do with our residents. And if we could raise money through philanthropic donations, some of which we have, it's not like we haven't had any success. But Casino started off as a food truck entrepreneur program. That's not what it is today. It largely is supporting a scholarship program, which is fantastic. But could we do more to target fundraising for programmatic things that we want to do as an organization, so we could provide a more robust, series of services to our staff, to our residents, and that would mean reconstituting the board. Our thought right now is that we reconstitute it with the 7 members that we have as a housing authority board. That's the easiest thing to get us back on track. There are other examples where other housing authorities have nonprofits that have boards that are not aligned with the housing authority board. There might be a couple board members, a couple staff, an executive team, some community leaders that really can kind of get us more engaged in the community. We could do probably a better job of actually fundraising through philanthropic dollars. We could do a better job of providing sort of the tax credits back to those donors so that they know their money's gone to good use. We could report on the outcomes of that. There's a lot more stuff we could do if we were sort of a real sort of foundation nonprofit that's really looking at, and I think we talked a little bit yesterday about having an annual purpose, a focus that we're going to focus this year on our senior programs or our family programs or our scholarship programs or whatever, so that we're more purposeful about the way we use our nonprofit to serve our purposes as a housing authority. And then obviously Triad owns property. The purpose of Triad was to kind of go beyond the public housing and HUD funded housing that we do as a housing authority. That's important. Do we want to continue to do that? Do we want to grow that effort or not? We haven't had that strategic conversation, at least with the board, in quite some time.
And that also happened before RAD came along.
True. Yeah.
Which really gave us a different tool to reposition out of public housing.
Exactly. And then obviously in homecoming, I think it's fair to say homecoming is really about making the bylaws, just updating bylaws more than anything else. Karen into Karen. That's really homecoming just needs some tweaks to the bylaws to bring them up to speed. But homecoming obviously has been a pretty active part of what we do over the last bunch of years since we started the tax credit investment projects. So I'll leave it there. I'd love to get your reaction. Do you think this is a priority for the housing authority to do? I happen to think it is, and one that maybe we've not paid enough attention to over the last couple of years, but it's due, and this is the time to do that. You want to add anything?
Well, I know Kate was not on the commission at the time that we did this strategic planning. So probably if there was one slide that I would pull out, it would be just this one that shows you the entities and really shows the housing authority as the central, operations. And so the housing authority really is the staff for all these entities. We run them. And basically, you are in a different setting. You are the board of homecomings. You also are the board of Cocinas and Fronteras, although we no longer have a Kitchen Without Borders program, Without Walls program. But Cocina, as you will hear from Stephanie next month, is involved in many, many projects. And it's not something that you as a board have really talked about or followed. And I know you can't really tell how excited Jeff is about the possibility, but there's just a tremendous opportunity to expand its work and to use that as a vehicle to increase the amount of services that we provide to residents and also the work that we do in the community with our partners. So that's really an important piece. And then Triad, as you will hear, maybe March, maybe April, I'm not sure, has really evolved a lot through several phases. And some of us think there's still an important value that it can bring. And but in each case, we should have, you as the commission should be talking about that and, working with the management team to really figure out how we want to position these and use them to their maximum benefits so that as an organization, we can have as much of an impact in Ventura as possible. And I'm just very excited that Jeff wants to take on this project and keep these pieces moving forward, and to, further engage you. And Karen, Stephanie will have plenty of community services stories, and Karen will have plenty of Triad stories, and we're very much looking forward to having the conversation with the commission. So really the reason that we're here to talk about it today is just to have you say, gee, this sounds so exciting. We do want to do it because we do want to keep, growing and evolving to meet the needs of the community.
Yeah, the casinos, like, it's a name that pops up periodically, and I absolutely have no idea what it was. I mean, other than it originally wanted to be a food truck in another life. So I'm glad to hear about that, and I'm all for it. I like the idea that Jeff or somebody mentioned about also the composition of that board possibly having other elements in it. I like that idea very, very much, just off the top of my head. Okay, Triad, let it roll. I mean, come on, we've got it in place, so.
It just needs a little help.
Well,
We
don't we
just
all?
need to help it roll
don't we all
along, because it's
occasionally?
still, as Joe can tell you, it's still functioning, it's still operating
We need to
financially.
reconstitute the board.
Right.
Yeah,
One
right.
thing.
And it's, things need to be refreshed,
Mhm.
I
Exactly.
mean, if you don't give it oxygen, it ain't gonna.
Mhm.
And I would add to, I think we both have said this, but I think there's looking at each individual entity sort of to make sure it does as much as it can to serve our mission, but also making sure that they're all aligned together too. That their structure is they relate to each other in the right way. And we're purposeful about how that works. I think we've been better at that in the past. I don't think we've focused on that in the last few years. And
Yeah. Well, the past few years also have been fairly bumpy. I mean,
It's-
we've
had other
for a lot of
distractions.
different reasons.
Yeah.
So, just say moving forward, let's go with it. And I'd like to hear much more, obviously, about Costinus, for example. Cause I literally, I said the name crops up periodically in stuff that I read or hear, and then it disappears again. So
But that's Stephanie's cue.
that's my two cents at the moment.
And we're excited to bring Christina to the next board meeting and take a
Good.
deeper dive and just a really quick look from our perspective. What was it? What's happened since its inception? And what does the future look like?
Excellent.
All
Thank you.
of these potential
Perfect.
pathways for success. So I'm excited to bring that.
Yeah.
So right now, it's doing the haunted house run and which then funds
Yeah.
the scholarship program.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and it holds some micro grants, for example, Montecito Bank Trust and our recent Morgan Stanley. So it holds some
Okay.
micro grants.
Good.
Takes in money also, right? Donations?
Yeah.
Yeah, to put it in perspective,
Yeah.
because I didn't, I know about obviously the haunted house run and all the scholarship fund, which I, blah, 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 blah. And I didn't realize it was under the, umbrella of, or the aegis of Costinus, okay? Duh.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly.
I feel rather stupid not knowing that.
Is it feasible that in this conversation that we're going to have sometime in March that we actually consider changing the name?
Yes.
It is no longer.
Yes.
It is part of the proposal.
That was another.
It feels to me that Cocinas, without even thinking about it, has the potential of becoming the foundation for the authority, right? So in order to do that, it seems to me like we should really be focusing on building that up and establishing it more formally in order to be able to do that. So I'm in favor of it.
Great.
Yes.
And if you have any suggestions for new names,
Mhm.
that would be great. So the staff has a little list going of some ideas of things that were talked about in the future and potential now, but I don't. think
Names
there's-
again.
I know. And we can also talk about what other housing authorities have done
Good.
with
Mhm.
similar, entities, or with similar, community services arms, so to speak. So that's good too.
Yeah.
And, I know you haven't heard anything from Tiernan today probably yet, but, part of
We've heard a
his,
lot from Turner today.
Yeah.
but part of his piece in this has been reminding us that the housing authority is a public entity.
Yeah.
It's it's essentially, it's a government, it performs a governmental function, whereas Homecomings, Cocinas and Fronteras and Triad are all nonprofits. They're all 501c3 charitable, public benefit organizations. So they can do some things that the housing authority can't do, and the housing authority can do some things that they can't do. So that's, that's all part of understanding the dynamic among these entities and how we can maximize their work.
Tiernan, I do have an attorney question, since you mentioned your name. My
define
attorney up north takes great pains to talk about affiliated organizations with the housing authority and associated organizations.
takes
with
great
the
pains
housing
to do
authority. Mark Mannion up at Price Postel and Farm, our general counsel up in Santa Barbara County. He's really specific that Surf Development Company, our primary 501c3, is not affiliated with the housing authority. It's associated because there's only one shared board member. The boards are otherwise completely separate. So is that really a legal, he really does pay particular attention that I refer to Surf as the associated 501c3 with the housing authority because it was formed by the housing authority.
I'm just gonna jump in here because I think, I'm not a lawyer, but I think I take great care to also make that distinction that Homecomings and Cocina are affiliates because the housing authority controls their board
Right.
as well as having the same board. Whereas Triad is associated because its
Right.
purpose is to support the housing authority.
And that was
But
his.
it does not,
Yeah.
the housing authority does not control its board, nor does it have the same board. Maybe you have a different perspective, but that's what I've been taught.
Well, and there's two other factors here. One is, how does the IRS distinguish it? And, how is it set up with the state of California? So both, originally, Homecomings and Cocina started out, and it says in their operating documents, they're instrumentalities of this entity. They're supporting organizations according to the IRS. So their whole function is to support the housing authority. Triad has had a very, I was gonna use the word sordid, that would be unfortunate, but it did start out being controlled by the housing authority.
Yeah.
As I have read through the documents, and now I guess I could say they're associated.
I'll talk to him and find out what distinction he's trying to draw. This
Okay.
linguistically associated means an acquaintance. Affiliated means part of the organization.
But I think that's where he was, what Karen was saying, that was because Surf, some people were referring to Surf as affiliated, which to them, to him, when people make that reference, he was saying it was controlled by the housing authority, which it is not.
Right, and when it comes to affiliates and instrumentalities, even when they're affiliated or instrumentalities, they've got a level of independence that's got to be respected.
Mhm.
So we don't make decisions on how Triad's going to proceed in a housing authority meeting. We do that in a Triad meeting or a Homecomings meeting. That's to maintain that level of independence. When you
Right.
get rid of that level of independence and start taking joint actions, you remove the immunity that Homecomings enjoys and that Triad enjoys.
Right.
You don't want to do that. So that's why we have these separate meetings and the like. I'm not familiar with the problem you're talking about between associates and affiliates.
It was just language. I think it was a language thing. When we go out in public meetings or talk to potential funders, they want to know what the relationship is, because some people and some foundations will only donate to a 501c3. They have no interest, even though they think the Housing Authority does a great job, they have no interest in donating to a public entity.
Right. Makes perfect
So
sense.
that's one of the things that where it does come up, is it comes up because people, just want to know what the association is.
Okay.
And I just want to throw out a couple things from my maybe personal experience, and interested in how your experience is, but in my past life at Cabrillo, we had an organization that was initially a nonprofit that was initially controlled by Cabrillo, but because we put some other board members on, at some point, it basically, those board members decided to split off from the initial organization. And so I think we have to, that obviously hasn't happened with SURF, it hasn't happened so far exactly with Triad, but
It's a danger.
it's a danger, and I think we
it's
have
a
to think
chance.
about it. So Triad, right now is, I think it was it was set up before I was around, but I think one of the original ideas was that it could become a Chodo and get HUD Chodo money. I don't think that's realistic at this point. And it's not set up so that it can enter into be a partner in tax credit limited partnerships, although there's some stuff we could do to make that happen if we wanted to. Because it's not an affiliate / instrumentality, it's not limited to the city of Ventura. But I'm not sure that we really want to go beyond the city of Ventura, or that if we did and had, made it so that it could do tax credit deals, it wouldn't have, I don't think, experience to really be a developer outside of the city. So, those are kind of some of the issues of looking at Triad, and it has a lot of resources. We're dependent or benefit from those resources, but we don't really control them very strongly if it got down to that. So I think those are things that should be looked at.
The one thing we've been able to evolve with SURF on is that we can go after the nonprofit set aside, because we built their capacity and experience to the level that SURF can go on its own.
So we're able to do that with Homecomings.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. It's
Yeah.
just, it's
It's successful.
different ways of doing the same thing.
And we have our first internal Triad meeting tomorrow morning, just to kind of start to frame how we want to have the conversation. And so our thought right now is at your February meeting, we would talk in detail on Casino, and then roll out. Triad might be March, it might be April, depending on when we're ready. And so we'll take those each to you separately and get your Housing Authority Board conversation. And then obviously those groups will then have their own meetings in their own capacity.
One thing to quickly add to the discussion, hopefully this isn't too far into the weeds, but because we've done so much with solar up north, we actually formed a wholly owned affiliate of SURF Development, a SURF Solar Company. And so we have a captive solar company included in the SURF nonprofit.
And we'd like to explore that a little bit further as we try to do solar, solarize our existing projects.
Yeah.
What benefit that
It's
is.
worked really well, because we actually can then, on some of the properties where it's 100%, it's net zero, we're able to just charge an administrative fee to the individuals, to the residents. So it actually benefits the residents, because SURF is actually their solar company.
And okay, maybe I'm too into the weeds, but does that help when you're adding solar to existing tax credit projects?
And no, that's upfront. Those are the ones we're able to do it upfront.
Good try.
Yeah. Yeah, because your investor, everybody has to be, on board with what you're doing with.
Exactly, so.
Yeah.
As we add solar, it's kind of working, it's not necessarily easy to get the investor approval,
Right.
but if we could maybe do it as a separate entity, maybe that would.
And as a nonprofit, I mean, it is, we actually have a nonprofit and for-profit arm, but that was specific to back when there were certain grants you could get that only could go to for-profits and certain grants that could only go to nonprofits. That's the reason we did it that way. That added complexity, but it fully paid, the solar system, basically. Anyway,
And that's,
And I-
that's,
Just one other thing, I mean, just to mention it in Cosina, okay, maybe we're never gonna do a food truck. But we do have a commercial kitchen at Westview two, and we set it up so that there could be 2 users, so the childcare center can be a user. And we actually added storage space, so the housing authority, or whoever could also be a user. In the kitchen if we wanted to do some. food
A resident per se, like if we had a resident who did catering or something and needed a bigger kitchen to.
No,
Why not?
No,
look, let's,
Let's have that
conversation. You're talking about in the weeds.
Yeah,
Sorry, I'm too.
we try not to. We'll get there in the future. And that's all we had for today. We're not asking for any action. We just wanted to frame the conversation.
How
Diana,
exciting.
see, what are your thoughts? No,
Again?
I got it. She lost the connection, but I thought that was.
is there, yeah, I'm wondering. Anyway, the sense that I'm getting from the comments is that we're, as a board, fully supportive of, finding ways to utilize me, really good things can be done.
Yeah.
And are being done, but even better things can be done. The one thing that having an arm's length board does is you can invite other people in, you can invite bankers.
Yeah.
Yes.
Invite, just a wide variety of
Yeah,
wide swaths of the community in. Because, that's just the way it is. And that can help.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Having
That's
those
what I
voices.
encourage.
And I would add, just give Joe some credit. So we realized that we were out of compliance with the state attorney general's registry of nonprofits for a couple of these, and Joe's worked real hard to get documentation and get us back on track.
Thank you.
Sure,
Good.
they're a good citizen at the attorney general's office in Sacramento. So I
Good.
wanted to bring that to your attention too.
Right.
Wasn't easy. So that's all we have for this one.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else from the commission? Well, thank you very much. This is definitely a worthwhile venture, just to add to the many worthwhile ventures that we're doing as we embark on this new year.
Yeah.
But
Do we have to take action?
no,
No, we're not asking
Okay.
questions. We're just FYI.
we just put that up there in case you wanted to take some action, like,
Hmm.
don't do that, Jeff,
That's
but,
a terrible idea.
but we didn't think you were gonna say that.
Yeah. Thank you for breathing life into that again.
Mhm.
Yeah,
We're excited. actually.
Thanks.
good. No, good idea.
okay, we move on to, thank you very much. Item number 6, information items. This is the time for commissioners and officers. What is going on in Southfield? I'm actually, I
Haven't
know
heard
there's
from you in
been
a
a
while.
little bump on
COVID?
Yeah, COVID. I
COVID cases, yes.
was actually able right after Christmas to get the new
New vaccine, yeah.
The Pfizer one. I'd had Moderna before.
The
but
Spike
this
vax?
was, yeah.
Was it
Yeah.
Spikevax? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's the one that's out there now. I'm not too connected to COVID right now because that's really just an IZ right now, and communicable disease are the ones that are doing all of that. We're not offering pre-vaccine anymore. I think I mentioned to you guys at the last meeting, at the second to the last meeting, that the public health department no longer receives vaccine to give to the general public. The vaccine that we are giving out relative to COVID is for those that are uninsured or underinsured.
Yeah.
So we only offer the vaccine now at our public health clinics, both in North and South Oxnard. And we are encouraging everybody to get vaccinated, particularly with regard to RSV and the flu.
Mhm.
Those are respiratory infections.
Right.
Those are exacerbated by COVID, and we are seeing a rise in RSV amongst
Yeah.
senior population.
Yeah.
It used to be that it was just a childhood,
Right.
very, infant type of disease, but now we're seeing a lot more of it in our senior population. So seniors are also encouraged to take the RSV, so if they haven't already.
Done it.
And I was told not. It's a brand new
Brand new vaccine,
vaccine,
yes,
so you
that's
call
right.
it a vaccine.
A yearly
It's no
vaccine,
longer a
right?
booster.
Yes, yeah.
We reached that stage where it's
Yeah.
endemic, which means that it's gonna be around forever now, so
Yeah.
now we have to prepare for it, much like the flu. And get vaccinated.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm up to date on that and I'm glad I'm sober.
Yeah.
It's a little sore. That was
Yeah,
all. The only
that's
reaction I
usually the
had
case,
was like
yeah.
a bit of soreness
That's the
and
measles, I mean, the measles, that's the flu one. The flu one always hurts more than even
Yes.
COVID, I think, for me.
the RSV, that one, yeah, I had put it this way, it's no big deal. For me, it was no big
No big
deal. I
deal.
got them all. The very first COVID shot, I was knocked out way back when.
Yeah,
That knocked me out. But after that, it was like,
immunity.
I guess so. Anyway,
Any other information items?
yeah,
I
Barbara.
think commissioner appointments are
Oh, yeah.
up.
Yeah,
yeah, they
Yeah,
are.
I know I put in my application
Me
in
too.
today.
great,
At
great.
Actually,
Form 700.
Thank you very much.
Um,
Well,
the-
the application, the Form 700 is every year.
I know, but I just got
Yeah.
that today also.
Yeah, we got that
so,
too. So,
CLAFA is May 9th to 10th in Washington DC. And looks interesting, so anyway, just got that.
Well, that Jeff and
This
Kristen
morning,
know.
yeah,
Yep, okay.
this morning, so
Yeah.
I'm interested, but I'll confirm. Anyway,
It's an excellent conference.
no, I haven't been to one in
That's
a
the
while, and it's
health
not till
education
May,
housing
yeah,
combo.
yeah. So anyway, just got that this morning, and I was looking at it and, going, oh, wow, yeah. Anyway, yeah. So that's it for me.
Okay, Kate?
Time being.
oh, that's all I got. I just put back in my application, so.
Yeah, I'm
See
gonna,
if they
I'm
still
gonna,
want me.
yeah, I'm gonna, I have mine, it's gonna go out like tomorrow or something. I mean, don't worry about it.
Good, okay. They're due in a week or two.
Yeah,
okay.
trust me. I mean, on that one.
Okay, I think that's it. We will then adjourn. Our next meeting is Wednesday, February 14th.
Valentine's Day.
Valentine's Day.
Yep.
So you're going to be exchanging Valentine's.
I was gonna say, can we bring a little bark?